I am 25 years old and I am a lieutenant in the United States Navy. And right now I am standing outside the marble entrance of the Grandview Country Club, where my own family is celebrating my cousin's engagement party, an event they deliberately erased me from. The valet attendants keep glancing at the black SUVs behind me, at the men in dark suits speaking into their earpieces, at the woman in uniform they've never seen command this kind of respect. In exactly 3 minutes, I'm going to walk through those glass doors with a Secret Service escort, and my family is going to learn that the disappointment they've spent years hiding has been personally protecting the President of the United States. The chandeliers inside cast golden light across the polished floors. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I can see them, my family, dressed in their finest, champagne glasses catching the light, laughter flowing as easily as expensive wine. The Grandview Country Club, where 3 generations of Chens have celebrated every milestone that mattered. Graduations, promotions, anniversaries, engagements. Every celebration except the ones that involved me. The invitation arrived 2 weeks ago, thick cardstock with embossed lettering. The Chen and Morrison families cordially invite you to celebrate the engagement of Victoria Chen and James Morrison. I read it twice before I noticed what was missing. No +1. No acknowledgement of rank. No recognition that the Victoria's cousin they were obligated to invite had spent the last 8 months standing between threats and the highest office in the land. But more than that, when I checked with my cousin David later, the one family member who still occasionally spoke to me, I learned the truth. My name hadn't been on the original guest list at all. The invitation came only after my grandmother specifically asked where I was. Even then, it was sent to my old address in Virginia Beach, the apartment I'd vacated 8 months ago when I was transferred to Washington. If not for the postal forwarding service, I never would have received it. The message was clear. We're legally obligated to invite you, but we're hoping you won't show up. My dress blues feel heavier tonight than they did this morning during the security briefing. The ribbons on my chest tell a story my family has never bothered to read. Navy Cross, Purple Heart, Presidential Service Badge, Combat Action Ribbon, Navy Unit Commendation. Each one earned in blood, sweat, and the kind of moments that separate the living from the dead. Medals earned in places they can't pronounce, for actions they'll never understand. The Presidential Service Badge is the newest addition, awarded just 3 months ago in a private ceremony in the Oval Office. Only 17 people were present: the President, her Chief of Staff, the Director of the Secret Service, and the 14-person team that forms the inner circle of presidential protection. No media, no fanfare, just the quiet recognition of those who understand what it means to stand between democracy and chaos. My family knows none of this. To them, I'm still the cousin who chose military service over law school, who picked duty over dynasty, who traded designer gowns for dress blues. They have no idea that their disappointment carries clearance levels that would make senators envious, or that I've stood in rooms where the fate of nations is decided. Agent Rodriguez stands beside me, his presence as steady as granite. Miguel Rodriguez, 15 years in the service, veteran of 3 presidential details, father of 2 daughters who think he works in boring government stuff. He's become something of a mentor to me, the older brother I never had in a family that seemed perpetually disappointed by my existence. "You sure about this, Lieutenant?" he asks quietly, his voice carrying the weight of someone who's seen too much to be surprised by family dysfunction. "We could always tell them you got called back for an emergency briefing." I adjust my white cap, ensuring every detail is perfect. The brass gleams under the country club's exterior lighting, each button polished to mirror brightness. My uniform is regulation perfect, because in my world, details matter. Lives depend on getting the small things right. They've made their choice for years, Agent Rodriguez. Tonight, they get to live with the consequences. Through the glass, I spot my Aunt Catherine, the family matriarch, holding court near the champagne fountain. Catherine Chen Williams, Harvard Law, senior partner at one of DC's most prestigious firms, the woman who single-handedly elevated the Chen family from middle-class immigrants to political royalty in 2 generations. Her silver hair is pulled into that same severe bun she's worn since I was a child, her expression as sharp as her tongue. She's the one who started it all. The whispered conversations that stopped when I entered a room, the careful editing of family photos, the gradual erasure of the girl who chose service over society. Catherine had plans for me. Big plans. Harvard undergraduate, then law school, then a position at her firm, then marriage to someone appropriate, meaning someone whose family name appeared in the social register and whose trust fund could buy senators. When I announced my acceptance to the Naval Academy at 18, she looked at me like I'd announced my intention to join a traveling circus. "Military service is admirable, Maya," she'd said in that tone that made everything sound like a moral failing. "But it's not a career. It's something you do for a few years before you get serious about your life." She never understood that I was serious. Deadly serious. About duty, honor, and the oath I took to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. The irony is exquisite. While she was building her legal empire, trading favors with politicians and judges, I was learning to protect the people who actually run the country. While she was networking at charity galas, I was standing 3 feet behind the president during crisis briefings that would reshape international relations. My cousin Victoria glides through the crowd in designer silk, her engagement ring catching every light. Beautiful, accomplished, everything the Chen family name is supposed to represent. Victoria Chen, Georgetown Law, currently clerking for a federal judge, engaged to James Morrison III, whose family owns half of Virginia's horse country and the other half of its political influence. She hugs relatives, accepts congratulations, poses for photos that will grace the society pages tomorrow. Victoria and I used to be close, best friends even, despite the 3-year age gap. We spent summers at our grandmother's house in Chesapeake Bay, building sandcastles and dreaming about our futures. She wanted to be president. I wanted to be a Navy SEAL, a dream that died when I learned women weren't allowed in special operations, but lived on in other forms. The distance between us started slowly. High school, when I chose JROTC over student government. College, when I picked the Naval Academy over Harvard. But the real break came during my second deployment, when I was serving aboard the U.S. Nimitz Asterisk in the Arabian Gulf. Victoria was planning her law school graduation party, and she wanted me to come home early. "Can't you just ask for leave?" she'd said during our video call, not understanding that you don't just ask for leave when you're maintaining combat air patrols over hostile territory. "This is important, Maya. Everyone will be there. All the family, friends, potential networking contacts. You're missing everything." "I'm protecting American interests in one of the most dangerous waterways in the world," I'd replied, exhaustion making my voice flat. "I think that's slightly more important than a graduation party." "Don't be dramatic," she'd snapped. "What you're doing isn't that dangerous. It's not like you're actually fighting a war." That was the moment I knew we lived in different worlds. To her, my service was an extended camping trip with better benefits. To me, it was the most important work a person could do. Not once does she glance toward the entrance tonight. Not once does she wonder why her cousin isn't there. Because in Victoria's world, I stopped existing the moment I stopped being useful to her ambitions. The last time I saw Victoria was 18 months ago, at our grandfather's funeral. I'd flown in from Washington, still in my dress uniform, because I'd come straight from a White House ceremony. One of my first assignments with the protection detail, a routine event that had turned complicated when intelligence suggested a potential threat. She'd looked right through me during the service, sat with the family while I stood in the back, and never once acknowledged the folded flag I'd helped carry. "Different worlds," she'd whispered to our cousin David that day, not caring that I could hear. "Some people just never figure out where they belong." I'd wanted to tell her about the previous week, when I'd stood in the Situation Room during a crisis that threatened to destabilize 3 allied governments. I'd wanted to explain that while she was memorizing tort law, I was memorizing the faces of potential assassins. I'd wanted her to understand that I knew exactly where I belonged, between democracy and its enemies. But I said nothing, because by then, I'd learned that my family's love came with conditions, and military service violated most of them. Tonight, the same dynamic plays out through the glass. The family illuminated, celebrating, connected, and me standing outside in the dark, watching a life that never quite had room for who I became. But tonight is different. Tonight, I'm not standing alone. Agent Chen, no relation despite the name, checks his watch and speaks quietly into his microphone. "Control, this is Overwatch 2. Package is in position. Timeline holding steady." To anyone listening, it sounds like standard security protocol. which it is, in a way. David Chen joined the Presidential Protection Detail 6 months before I did, transferred from the Treasury Department where he'd spent 3 years hunting counterfeiters and financial criminals. He's third-generation Chinese-American, like me, but from San Francisco's Chinatown, where family meant something different than it did in D.C.'s political circles. His family owns a small restaurant and considers his federal service something to brag about to customers. "Perimeter is secure, Lieutenant," he reports quietly. "No unusual activity, just rich people drinking expensive champagne and pretending their problems matter." I almost smile at that. Agent Chen has no patience for the kind of privilege that forgets its own luck. "Transport is in position, Lieutenant." "Ready when you are," Agent Rodriguez adds, touching his earpiece where he's monitoring communications from the command post established in the parking garage across the street. Even for a routine family appearance, the Secret Service doesn't take chances. 3 SUVs, 6 agents, communications support, and a medical team standing by 2 blocks away. It seems like overkill for an engagement party, but when you protect the President of the United States, you learn that threats come from unexpected places, including family gatherings. This level of security follows me everywhere now, to grocery stores, restaurants, even casual walks through Georgetown. It's the price of proximity to power, the cost of being trusted with the life of the most important person in America. My family doesn't know about any of it. They think I'm stationed in Norfolk, pushing papers and attending mandatory training. The memory of how I got here hits me without warning, sharp and sudden like it always does. The taste of salt spray, the screaming wind, the moment everything changed forever. It was 8 months ago, aboard the U.S. Constellation, somewhere in the Pacific. The guided missile destroyer was conducting routine patrol operations in international waters, part of the 7th Fleet's presence mission in the South China Sea. I was officer of the deck during the midnight watch, the ship cutting through 10-foot swells under a starless sky. The radio chatter was routine. Position reports, weather updates, the endless electronic conversations that keep a fleet coordinated across thousands of miles of ocean. The call came in at 0347 hours. Priority Alpha, direct from Fleet Command. Presidential detail requesting immediate extraction. Aircraft down. Location classified. What I learned later, what the newspapers never reported, was that Air Force 2 had suffered catastrophic engine failure during a diplomatic mission to the Philippines. The Vice President, along with key cabinet members and a delegation of foreign dignitaries, were down in hostile waters with search and rescue assets hours away. Worse, intelligence suggested that foreign naval forces were moving toward the crash site, potentially to capture or eliminate survivors for political leverage. The decision was mine. As officer of the deck, I had authority to maneuver the ship in emergency situations. I could take the Constellation into unmarked territorial waters without authorization, risk an international incident, potentially start a war, or follow protocol and wait for clearance that might come too late. I didn't hesitate. "Helm, come left to bearing 270, all ahead flank speed, general quarters." The bridge erupted in controlled chaos as my crew responded to the emergency. The Constellation came alive beneath our feet, 30,000 tons of steel and technology turning toward danger instead of away from it. The ship's captain, Commander Sarah Walsh, appeared on the bridge within minutes, still fastening her uniform jacket. "Report, Lieutenant," she ordered, her voice crisp despite being awakened from sleep. "Air Force 2 is down, ma'am. Vice President and cabinet members in the water. Foreign naval assets converging on the area. I've ordered flank speed to intercept." Commander Walsh looked at the tactical display showing our course, then at me. For a moment that felt like eternity, she studied my face, weighing the implications of what I'd done. Breaking into foreign territorial waters without authorization could trigger an international incident. But leaving American officials to die or be captured would be unforgivable. "You realize we're about to violate territorial waters of 3 different countries?" she asked quietly. "Yes, ma'am." "You realize this could be interpreted as an act of war?" "Yes, ma'am." She studied my face for a long moment, then nodded. "Very well, I have the con. Continue on course. Let's go save some lives." The next 4 hours were the longest of my life. We raced through waters that didn't belong to us, dodging patrol boats and radar sweeps, while I coordinated the most complex rescue operation in Navy history from the bridge of a guided missile destroyer. My job was to manage communications between the ship, the rescue helicopters launching from Okinawa, and the scattered aircraft providing air cover. Every decision had to be perfect. Every timing calculation had to be exact. Lives depended on getting it right. The stakes were enormous. If we failed, if the vice president died on my watch, the political ramifications would reshape American foreign policy for decades. If we succeeded but triggered an international incident, I would face court-martial and disgrace. But if we did nothing, if we followed protocol and waited for authorization, 17 people would die while bureaucrats debated jurisdictional issues. When we reached the crash site, the scene was chaos. Debris scattered across miles of churning ocean, life rafts barely visible in the darkness, emergency beacons blinking like scattered stars. And somewhere in that nightmare, the second most powerful person in America was fighting for her life. I personally led the rescue boat crew. While my sailors pulled survivors from the water, I dove again and again into the wreckage, searching for anyone still trapped. The water was black as ink, visibility near zero, and the wreckage was sharp enough to slice through diving suits. Each dive was a gamble with death, but we couldn't leave anyone behind. The vice president was unconscious, pinned under twisted metal 20 feet below the surface. The aircraft's cabin had partially collapsed, creating a maze of sharp aluminum and broken glass. Getting to her required swimming through spaces barely wide enough for a human body, following emergency lighting that flickered and died as electrical systems failed. I held my breath for 3 minutes and 40 seconds, a personal record that nearly killed me, to cut her free with emergency tools. 3 minutes of sawing through aluminum and steel while my lungs burned and my vision started to tunnel. 3 minutes of refusing to surface without her, even as my body screamed for oxygen. She wasn't breathing when we got her to the surface. I performed CPR for 18 minutes while my medic worked to stabilize her injuries. 18 minutes of pushing life back into lungs that had given up, of refusing to let the United States lose its vice president on my watch. My arms cramped. My back screamed. But I kept going because that's what you do when democracy itself is drowning in your hands. The medical training that saved her life came from years of preparation most people never see. Combat medic certification, advanced life support, underwater rescue techniques. All skills I'd acquired because the Navy demanded excellence in everything, not just the glamorous parts of service. She lived. They all lived. Because a 25-year-old Navy lieutenant decided that some orders are worth breaking and some risks are worth taking. The rescue was classified. The medals were awarded in private ceremonies. The only public acknowledgement was a brief statement about a successful training exercise in the Pacific. The vice president's near-death experience was covered up to prevent panic and protect ongoing diplomatic negotiations. My family never knew. How could they? To them, I was still the disappointment, who chose military service over law school, who picked duty over dynasty, who traded designer gowns for dress blues. But the White House knew. The president knew. And when they needed someone they could trust, absolutely, someone who had already proven they would risk everything for the mission, they called Lieutenant Maya Chen. The Presidential Protection Detail isn't something you apply for. It's something you're selected for, after extensive background checks, psychological evaluations, and a personal interview with the president herself. The vetting process takes months. They examine every aspect of your life, from your financial records to your kindergarten report cards. They interview friends, enemies, neighbors, and former lovers. They build a psychological profile that predicts how you'll react in any conceivable crisis. The selection process is designed to eliminate anyone with divided loyalties, personal vulnerabilities, or psychological instabilities. They want agents who will take a bullet without hesitation, who will follow orders without question, who will maintain absolute secrecy even under torture. I spent 3 hours in the Oval Office, answering questions about duty, loyalty, and what it means to put your life between democracy and chaos. President Elizabeth Harrison didn't ask about my family background or my career ambitions. She asked about character. About the moments when nobody was watching and everything was at stake. "Why do you serve, Lieutenant?" the president had asked me, her eyes holding mine with the intensity that had carried her through 2 wars and 4 elections. Not the textbook answer, the real answer. "Because someone has to stand watch, ma'am," I'd answered. "And I'd rather it be someone who understands what we're protecting." Which is? The idea that people should be free to choose their own paths, even when those paths disappoint their families. She'd smiled then, the first genuine smile I'd seen from her all day. "Welcome to the team, Lieutenant Chen. For 8 months, I've been shadow and shield. I've stood in rooms where the future of nations was decided, walked 3 steps behind power itself, and slept with one ear always listening for threats that might never come but must always be anticipated. My typical day starts at 0500, with a security briefing that covers everything from weather patterns to psychological profiles of potential threats. I know the president's schedule better than she does, including contingencies for contingencies. I know which senators can be trusted, which foreign diplomats might be compromised, and which domestic political groups have crossed the line from opposition to danger. I've been with her during budget negotiations that lasted 18 hours straight, standing silent in the corner while she fought for programs that would feed children and house veterans. I've walked beside her through Arlington National Cemetery as she honored the dead, seeing her cry when she thought no one was looking. I've watched her make decisions that will affect millions of lives, bearing the weight of consequences most people can't imagine. My family thinks I'm stationed in Norfolk, pushing papers and polishing brass. They have no idea their disappointment has clearance levels that would make their heads spin, that I've been briefed on national security matters that even senators don't know about, that I've shared private moments with the most powerful woman in the world. The irony is exquisite. They've spent years making me feel small, insignificant, forgettable. Meanwhile, I've been standing at the center of history, trusted with secrets that could reshape the world. During the Syrian crisis last month, I was in the Situation Room when the president decided whether to authorize military action that could have triggered World War III. I stood behind her chair as she weighed intelligence reports and casualty estimates, watching her carry the burden of choices that would define her legacy and determine the fate of millions. "What do you think, Lieutenant?" she'd asked me during a brief break, when it was just the 2 of us in the small anteroom adjacent to the main briefing space. I wasn't supposed to have opinions on policy. My job was protection, not advice. But she'd asked, and the President of the United States doesn't ask casual questions. "I think you'll make the right choice, ma'am, you always do. Even when there is no right choice?" "Especially then." She'd nodded, gathering herself for another round of impossible decisions. "Thank you, Lieutenant, for everything." Tonight that irony becomes justice. I take one last look at the scene inside. At the family that taught me I wasn't enough. At the cousin who learned to speak about me in past tense while I was still breathing. At the aunt who perfected the art of loving conditionally. They wanted me erased. They wanted me forgotten. Tonight, they're going to remember exactly who Maya Chen became when they weren't paying attention. Agent Rodriguez touches his earpiece, then nods to me. "Overwatch is in position, Lieutenant. We're green across the board." I look up at the surrounding buildings, knowing that even now, eyes are watching, scopes are trained, communications are monitored. The president isn't here, but the protection detail never truly stands down. When you guard the most important person in America, every movement becomes calculated. Every location becomes a tactical exercise. Counter-sniper teams on 3 rooftops. Electronic surveillance monitoring communications. A medical team standing by. Air support on 15-minute notice. Even for a family engagement party, the Secret Service doesn't take chances. "Control, this is Overwatch 1, Agent Rodriguez speaks quietly into his microphone. Package is moving to insertion point. Timeline remains green. More code, more protocol. More evidence that their disappointment operates in a world where casual threats are measured against international incidents, where split-second decisions determine whether democracy survives another day. The double doors of the Grandview Country Club swing open as we approach. Agent Chen moves ahead, scanning faces with practiced efficiency. His trained eye catalogs every guest, every staff member, every potential threat or avenue of escape. To the untrained observer, he looks like an extremely attentive security guard. To anyone who understands federal protection protocols, he's clearly something much more significant. Agent Rodriguez falls into step beside me, his presence both comforting and commanding. The formation is textbook. Advance agent, principal, rear guard, with communication teams coordinating movement from outside positions. Inside, the conversations falter. Heads turn. Champagne glasses pause midway to lips. I remember this feeling from combat. The moment when time stretches, when every detail becomes hyper-aware, when the world holds its breath and waits to see what happens next. The first person to notice us is my cousin David, Victoria's younger brother, David Chen Morrison. He hyphenated his name when he married into money 2 years ago, something that would have been unthinkable in our grandparents' generation. He's talking to some college friends near the bar when his eyes find mine. The color drains from his face. His mouth opens, then closes, no sound emerging. David and I used to be close, before family politics made communication complicated. He's the one who told me about Victoria's engagement before the official announcement, the one who occasionally sends Christmas cards to whatever address he can find for me. He's also the one who warned me that my name wasn't on the original guest list. Aunt Catherine is still mad about the academy, he'd explained during a brief phone call 3 months ago. She thinks you're wasting your potential. Victoria thinks you're being dramatic about the whole military thing. They don't understand that this is your career, not a phase. What do you think? I'd asked him. I think you're the only one in the family who's actually doing something that matters, he'd said quietly. But they'll never see it that way. Tonight, David sees me in full dress uniform, flanked by federal agents, and his expression shifts from confusion to dawning realization. He knows enough about Washington to recognize the signs of real power, real importance. Then Victoria sees me. She's in the middle of a conversation with her future mother-in-law when her gaze shifts to the entrance. For a heartbeat, there's only confusion. Maya? Here? In uniform? Then her eyes track to the men flanking me, taking in their earpieces, their alert postures, their unmistakable federal bearing. The confusion becomes something else entirely. Victoria Chen, federal judge clerk, Georgetown law graduate, future political wife, suddenly looks like she's seeing a ghost. Her champagne flute tilts in her manicured hand, pale liquid, threatening to spill onto her designer dress. The woman who has spent years perfecting her social graces, who can navigate complex legal arguments and political dinner parties with equal skill, stands frozen in place. Aunt Catherine turns next, following Victoria's shocked stare. Her champagne glass tilts in her hand, pale liquid splashing onto her designer dress without her noticing. The woman who has spent years perfecting the art of controlled social situations suddenly looks completely, utterly lost. Catherine Chen Williams, Harvard Law, senior partner, the woman who elevated our family from immigrants to influencers, the woman who plans every social interaction 3 moves ahead like a chess master, she's frozen. Her carefully constructed world, where military service is a temporary aberration and real success means law degree and political connections, has just been shattered by the sight of her disappointment niece, commanding more respect than anyone else in the room. The room begins to quiet. Not all at once, but in waves. Conversations die mid-sentence as people notice the uniforms, the tension, the unexpected disruption of their carefully orchestrated evening. I can hear fragments of whispered questions. Is that Maya? Why are there federal agents? What's happening? Security clearance? Secret Service? The speculation spreads through the crowd like wildfire. These are people who understand power, who recognize the signs of federal authority when they see it. The presence of agents with earpieces and alert postures sends a clear message. Whoever they're protecting is someone of extraordinary importance. Agent Rodriguez maintains his position while Agent Chen moves to secure the perimeter, his movements smooth and professional. To the untrained eye, they might look like bodyguards. To anyone who knows federal protection protocols, they're clearly something much more significant. I walk deeper into the room, my dress blues pristine, my bearing precise. The crowd parts without conscious thought, creating a path through the sea of confused faces and whispered questions. My shoes click against the marble floor with military precision, each step deliberate and measured. My grandmother, sitting in the place of honor near the cake table, looks up as I approach. At 93, Eleanor Chen has seen more history than the rest of the family combined. The communist takeover of China, immigration to America with nothing but hope and determination, building a life from scratch in a country that didn't always welcome Asian faces. Her eyes light up when she sees me, and for a moment the formal mask slips. This is the woman who sent care packages to every base I've been stationed at, who keeps a scrapbook of my military achievements, who has never once questioned my choice to serve. Maya, she says softly, her voice carrying the weight of 9 decades, you look beautiful, child. Thank you, grandmother, I reply, bending to kiss her cheek. I'm sorry I'm late. You're here now, she says, patting my hand with fingers weathered by decades of hard work. That's what matters. Maya? Victoria's voice carries across the suddenly quiet space, high and strained. What? What are you doing here? I stop in the center of the room, surrounded by 3 generations of family who have worked so hard to forget I exist. The chandeliers cast their golden light across my ribbons, making each metal catch fire. I received an invitation, I say simply, my voice carrying the projection training that comes with command presence, though I notice my name wasn't on the guest list. A ripple of discomfort moves through the crowd. Several people look away, embarrassed to be witnessing family dysfunction at what should be a celebration. Aunt Catherine recovers first, her social reflexes kicking in. Maya dear, of course you're welcome. We just weren't sure about your schedule. Military life is so unpredictable. Her eyes dart to Agent Rodriguez, then back to me. Though I must say, this seems rather formal for a family gathering. My schedule is quite predictable, actually, I reply, my tone pleasant but carrying an edge that makes several people shift uncomfortably. I just returned from a security briefing at the White House. The president was very understanding when I explained I had a family obligation. The silence that follows is absolute. Even the waitstaff have stopped moving. Victoria laughs, a sound like breaking glass. The White House? Maya, really? You don't have to make up stories. We know you're stationed in Virginia. David told us you work in supply logistics. Agent Rodriguez steps forward, his voice respectful but firm. Lieutenant Chen, we should maintain timeline. The director is expecting confirmation by 2,100 hours. Every eye in the room turns to him, then back to me. The implications hit them in waves. Director. Timeline. The kind of language that doesn't belong at engagement parties unless you're someone very important or very dangerous. My Uncle Robert, Victoria's father, steps forward. He's always been the family pragmatist, the one who asks direct questions when everyone else dances around truth. Maya, he says carefully, what exactly do you do for the Navy? I could lie. I could deflect, minimize, let them keep their comfortable assumptions about their disappointing relative. But I've spent 8 months learning that truth is a weapon more powerful than any gun. I protect the President of the United States, Uncle Robert. I'm part of her personal security detail. The words land like artillery shells. I watch the impact ripple across faces, see assumptions shatter and reform in real time. Victoria staggers slightly, caught between disbelief and dawning realization. That's not possible. You're in the Navy. You push papers. I was promoted to the Presidential Protection Detail 8 months ago, I continue, my voice steady. After I led the rescue operation that saved Vice President Harrison's life. The mission was classified, but I'm authorized to discuss my current assignment in general terms. Aunt Catherine's face has gone white. She grips the back of a chair, her knuckles standing out like marble. The newspapers, she whispers. They said it was a training exercise. The newspapers say what we tell them to say, Aunt Catherine. Some truths are too dangerous for public consumption. Agent Chen appears at my elbow, speaking quietly but loud enough for nearby guests to hear. Lieutenant, we've completed the security sweep. The perimeter is secure, but we should consider timing. The president's evening briefing is at 2,200 hours. More jargon, more implications, more evidence that their disappointment operates in circles they can't even imagine. I nod to Agent Chen, then look around the room one more time. I can't stay long, I announce. Duty calls. But I wanted to congratulate Victoria personally. I turn to my cousin. Marriage is about finding someone who sees your worth even when the world doesn't recognize it. I hope James appreciates what he's getting. Maya, Victoria finally manages, I don't understand. How long have you been? 8 months in this position. 3 years in naval intelligence before that. 6 years of active duty total. I check my watch. I've been protecting America's interests while you've been protecting the family's social standing. Different priorities. The barb hits home. Victoria flinches as if I'd slapped her. Aunt Catherine finds her voice, though it comes out strained. We had no idea. You never said. You never asked. The words are simple, factual, devastating. When did any of you last ask what I actually do? When did any of you show interest in my career beyond wondering when I'd give it up for something more appropriate? My grandmother speaks into the quiet, her voice carrying the authority of age and wisdom. I asked, she says simply, every Christmas card, every phone call. Maya always tells me about her work, her medals, her accomplishments. I have a scrapbook. The words hit the rest of the family like a sledgehammer. While they were ignoring me, dismissing me, my grandmother was documenting my achievements, celebrating my successes. Finally, my Uncle Robert clears his throat. Maya, perhaps we haven't been as supportive as we should have been. Perhaps not, I agree, but that's not why I'm here tonight. I reach into my jacket and withdraw a folded piece of paper, thick, cream-colored stock with an official seal visible through the fold. Every eye in the room fixes on it. This morning I received commendation from the President herself, the Navy Cross for extraordinary heroism in combat. The citation reads, in part, Lieutenant Chen's actions under fire and selfless dedication to duty saved the lives of 17 people, including the Vice President of the United States. I hand the paper to Victoria, who takes it with trembling fingers. I thought the family should know, I continue, since my promotion to Lieutenant Commander will be announced next week. The President will be presenting the award personally at a White House ceremony. The media will be present. Victoria stares at the commendation, her face cycling through emotions too quickly to track. Behind her, James reads over her shoulder, his expression shifting from confusion to awe to something approaching respect. The ceremony is next Friday at 1,400 hours, I add. You're all invited, of course. Security clearance will be required, which means background checks for anyone who wants to attend. The Secret Service is quite thorough. Aunt Catherine makes a sound like a wounded animal. I understand this might be overwhelming, I continue, my tone growing gentler without losing its steel. It's a lot to process. The revelation that your family disappointment has been operating at the highest levels of national security. That the cousin you've worked so hard to minimize has been personally trusted by the President with her life. Agent Rodriguez checks his watch and gives me a subtle nod. Time to go. I need to leave now, I announce. The President has an evening briefing and I'm required to be present for all classified discussions. I pause, letting that sink in. But before I go, I want to say something. The room holds its breath. For years, you've made it clear that I don't fit your vision of what a Chen should be. Too military, too serious, too different. You've left my name off guest lists, cropped me out of photos, and spoken about me in past tense while I was still breathing. Victoria's face crumples. Aunt Catherine looks away. But tonight, I want you to understand something. I didn't achieve this position to prove you wrong. I didn't save those lives to earn your approval. I didn't take an oath to protect and defend the Constitution because I needed your validation. I step closer to Victoria, my voice dropping to just above a whisper. I did it because it was right, because someone had to stand watch, because the President of the United States looked me in the eye and trusted me with the most important job in America. Tears tracked down Victoria's cheeks, smearing her perfect makeup. You wanted to erase me from the family story, I continue. You wanted me to disappear, to stop being an embarrassment to the Chen name. Well, congratulations, you've succeeded. The words hang in the air like smoke. Because I'm not just Maya Chen anymore. I'm Lieutenant Commander Chen, Presidential Protection Detail. I'm the woman who saved the Vice President's life. I'm the one the President trusts when trust means everything. I take a step back, my voice returning to its normal volume. And that woman? She doesn't need your approval. She doesn't need your acceptance. She doesn't need your guest list or your photo ops or your conditional love. Agent Rodriguez moves closer, a subtle signal that it's time to go. But she thought you should know. She thought you deserved one last chance to decide what kind of family you want to be. I turn to address the entire room. The White House ceremony is Friday, 1,400 hours. If you want to attend, Agent Rodriguez will provide the necessary security clearance forms. If you don't, well, the president will understand. She's met my family before. In the stories I've shared, she knows exactly who you are. With that, I turn toward the exit. Agent Chen falls into step ahead of me, Agent Rodriguez beside me. The crowd parts again, this time with something approaching reverence. As we reach the door, Victoria's voice stops me. Maya, wait. I turn back, my expression neutral. She's holding the commendation in both hands, tears streaming freely now. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. For a moment, I see the cousin I grew up with. The girl who used to build forts with me in our grandmother's attic, who shared secrets and dreams before those dreams became liabilities to be managed. I know you are, I say softly, but sorry doesn't undo 8 years of erasure. Sorry doesn't give me back the birthdays I spent alone, the promotions you never celebrated, the moments when I needed family and found empty spaces instead. She nods, unable to speak. The security forms will be sent tomorrow, I add. Whether you use them is up to you. Outside, the night air feels clean after the suffocating atmosphere of disappointment and champagne. Agent Rodriguez opens the rear door of the lead SUV while Agent Chen scans the perimeter one last time. How do you feel, Lieutenant? Rodriguez asks as we settle into the vehicle. I consider the question while the Grandview Country Club shrinks in the rear window. Inside, my family is probably still standing in shocked silence, trying to process the revelation that their carefully crafted narrative has been destroyed in the space of 20 minutes. Free, I answer finally. I feel free. Quote, the convoy pulls away from the country club, 3 black SUVs moving in perfect formation through suburban streets that suddenly seem too small for the secrets they're carrying. My phone buzzes with a text message. Agent Rodriguez glances at the screen, nods that it's clear, and hands it to me. It's from the president. Hope the family reunion went well. See you at 0800 for the morning briefing. We have work to do. I smile, tucking the phone away. Some families are born, others are chosen. And, sometimes, the most important one is the team that trusts you with everything, when blood relations trust you with nothing. But tonight's revelations are only the beginning. Over the next several days, as news of my assignment spreads through Washington's interconnected social networks, the full implications of what my family missed will become clear. 3 days later, I'm standing in the Roosevelt Room, briefing the president on security protocols for her upcoming state visit to Germany. The meeting includes the Secretary of State, the National Security Advisor, and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. It's routine for me now, but the access it represents would make my family's political connections look like amateur hour. Lieutenant, the president says as the meeting concludes, I understand your family has been surprised by recent revelations about your assignment. That's one way to put it, ma'am. She smiles, the expression that makes world leaders nervous and adversaries recalculate their positions. I've been thinking about your situation. Would you be interested in speaking at the Naval Academy commencement next month? The midshipmen could benefit from hearing about service paths they might not have considered. The offer is enormous. Naval Academy commencement speakers are typically cabinet-level officials, senior military leaders, or heads of state. I would be honored, ma'am. Good. My staff will coordinate with yours. She pauses, studying my face. Your family will be invited, of course. All of them. VIP seating. Later that day, Agent Rodriguez finds me reviewing security protocols for the Germany trip. Heard about the Academy speech, he says, settling into the chair across from my desk. That's a big deal. Bigger than I expected when I walked into that engagement party. You know they'll all come, right? Your family. They won't be able to resist. I know. How does that make you feel? Quote. I consider the question. 3 days ago, I would have said vindicated. Now, after the initial satisfaction has faded, I feel something more complex. Hopeful, I answer finally. Maybe it's not too late for them to learn. Maybe they can become the family I always needed them to be. The phone rings, interrupting our conversation. It's Agent Chen, calling from his post outside the Oval Office. Lieutenant, you have a visitor. Says she's family. I frown. Family? Here? Victoria Chen. She says it's urgent. I look at Rodriguez, who shrugs. Your call, Lieutenant. Send her up. 5 minutes later, Victoria appears in my doorway. She looks smaller somehow, diminished without the designer gown and perfect makeup. She's wearing jeans and a simple sweater, her hair pulled back in a ponytail that makes her look more like the cousin I remember from childhood. Maya, she says quietly. Thank you for seeing me. Victoria, I gesture to the chair across from my desk. This is unexpected. She sits carefully, looking around the office with obvious awe. The space is modest by White House standards, but the location speaks volumes. Windows overlooking the north lawn. Secure communications equipment. Files marked with classification levels that most people never see. I've been thinking, she begins, then stops, seeming to gather her courage. About what you said the other night, about sorry not being enough. I wait. You're right, it's not enough. But I wanted you to know that I understand now. What we did to you. What I did. What did you do, Victoria? She takes a shaky breath. I convinced myself that you were being dramatic. That military service was just a phase. A rebellion against family expectations. I told myself that if we just ignored it long enough, you'd come to your senses and come home. Come home to what? To us. To the life we had planned for you. Law school, the firm, marriage to someone appropriate. The life that would have made you happy. The life that would have made you happy, I correct. The life that would have fit your image of what the Chen family should be. She nods, tears starting to fall. I was selfish. I was scared. Scared of what? Of losing you. But more than that, scared of what it meant if you were right. If there were more important things than law degrees and social connections and family approval. I lean back in my chair, studying her face. And now? Quote. Now I've spent 3 days learning who you really are. Not just the job, but the person. I called your grandmother, asked her to tell me about your letters, your achievements, the things we never bothered to hear. Victoria reaches into her purse and pulls out a small photo album. She gave me this. Pictures and news clippings she's been collecting for years. Your graduation from the academy, your promotion ceremonies, newspaper articles about ships you've served on. She opens the album, showing me pages I've never seen. My grandmother, documenting my career with the pride my parents never showed. There are 17 pages, Victoria continues. 17 pages of accomplishments we ignored, of moments we should have celebrated. I take the album, flipping through pages of memories. Some photos I remember sending to my grandmother. Others she must have found online or requested from the Navy. All of them proof that someone in my family was paying attention, even when everyone else looked away. She's proud of you, Victoria says softly. So proud. She talks about you like you're a hero. I'm not a hero, I'm just someone who does her job. Your job is protecting the President of the United States. Your job is saving lives. Your job matters more than anything the rest of us do. I close the album, setting it carefully on my desk. It matters to me. That's enough. Is it? Is it really enough? The question hangs between us. It has to be, I say finally, because I can't build my life around seeking approval from people who fundamentally don't understand my choices. Victoria nods. But what if we want to understand? What if we want to try? Before I can answer, my secure phone rings. The president's direct line. I have to take this, I tell Victoria. Of course. I answer the phone. Lieutenant Chen. Maya, we have a situation. Can you be in the situation room in 10 minutes? Yes, ma'am. Good. And Maya, bring your gear. We might be traveling tonight. The line goes dead. I'm already moving, pulling my go bag from the closet, checking my sidearm, shifting into the mental space that turns me from family member to protector of democracy. Victoria watches in fascination as I transform. Is this normal? Define normal, I say, securing classified files in the safe. In my world, normal means being ready to leave for anywhere in the world with 30 minutes notice. Normal means carrying the weight of national security every moment of every day. How do you do it? I pause, looking at her directly. The same way you do anything that matters. One day at a time, with people you trust, for reasons that transcend personal comfort. My phone buzzes with a text from Agent Rodriguez. Transport ready, POTUS is wheels up in 90 minutes. I have to go, I tell Victoria. Crisis management. She stands, clutching the photo album. Maya, before you leave, the White House ceremony next week. We'd like to come, all of us. I'll have the security forms sent over. And the Naval Academy speech? I study her face, looking for signs of the old Victoria, the one who made everything about appearances and social advancement. But I see something different now. Something that might be genuine. We'll see, I say finally. That's all I can ask for. Agent Rodriguez appears in the doorway. Lieutenant, we need to move. I grab my gear and head for the door, then stop. Victoria? Yes? The family you want to understand? She's not going anywhere, but she's also not waiting around for permission to exist. I understand. Do you? Because this is who I am. Crisis calls. Middle of the night deployments. Months of classified work you'll never hear about. This isn't a job I can leave at the office. I'm beginning to understand that. Good. Because if you want to be part of my life, you need to understand that my life belongs to something bigger than family politics. With that, I'm gone, following Rodriguez through corridors that lead to the most secure conference room in America, where the president is waiting with news that will reshape international relations and require my full attention for the next 72 hours. 2 weeks later, I stand on the platform at the Naval Academy, looking out at 1,000 midshipmen in their dress whites, the future leadership of the United States Navy. Behind them, in the VIP section, I see my family. All of them. Even relatives I haven't seen in years, drawn by curiosity about the Chen family member who somehow earned the right to address the graduating class. My grandmother sits in the front row, wearing her best dress and a smile that could power the entire academy. Beside her, my parents look proud but uncertain, still processing the revelation that their daughter operates at levels they never imagined. Victoria and James hold hands, their faces reflecting something that might be genuine admiration. Aunt Catherine sits perfectly straight, her expression unreadable. But she's here, which is more than I expected 3 weeks ago. Midshipmen, I begin, my voice carrying across the parade grounds. You are about to embark on careers that will test everything you believe about duty, honor, and sacrifice. I speak for 20 minutes about service and sacrifice, about the moments when doing the right thing costs everything but doing the wrong thing costs more. I talk about the loneliness of command, the weight of responsibility, and the incomparable satisfaction of knowing your life has meaning beyond personal ambition. Some of you will face families who don't understand your choices. I continue, my eyes finding Victoria in the crowd. Some will lose friends who can't comprehend why you chose service over salary, duty over comfort. This is the price of the path you've chosen. The midshipmen listen with the intensity of people facing their future. But you will also discover families you never expected, teams that trust you absolutely, leaders who see your potential before you recognize it yourself. You will learn that the most important approval comes not from those who share your name, but from those who share your mission. When I finish, the applause is thunderous. 1,000 future naval officers on their feet, recognizing something in my words that resonates with their own dreams and fears. But more meaningful is the smaller applause from the VIP section. My family, finally understanding what they've been missing. Finally seeing me as I actually am rather than as they wanted me to be. After the ceremony, during the reception, Victoria approaches with my parents and grandmother. Maya, my mother says quietly, we owe you an apology. A real one, not the surface politeness we've been offering. You don't owe me anything, Mom. Yes, we do. We owe you 8 years of pride, 8 years of celebration, 8 years of family support that we withheld because we couldn't see past our own expectations. My father nods, his expression grave. We taught you to be strong, independent, capable. Then we punished you for becoming exactly what we raised you to be. You made your choices based on what you thought was best, I reply. I made mine based on what I knew was right. We can't change the past. Quote, but we can change the future, Victoria interjects, if you'll let us. I look at their faces, seeing something I haven't seen in years. Genuine respect. Not the conditional approval that required me to meet their expectations, but actual respect for who I've become. What does that look like, I ask. Family dinners where we ask about your work and actually listen to the answers, my mother says. Christmas cards sent to your correct address, Victoria adds. Photo albums that include your achievements, Aunt Catherine contributes quietly. Birthday celebrations that honor who you are, not who we wish you were, my father finishes. It's not everything. It's not enough to erase 8 years of feeling invisible, but it's a beginning. We'll see, I say, the same words I gave Victoria weeks ago. But this time, I'm smiling when I say it. 6 months later, I'm standing in my grandmother's kitchen, helping her prepare dinner for the first Chen family gathering I've attended in 3 years. Through the window, I can see Victoria and James playing with their new baby in the backyard, while my parents set up tables for what promises to be a chaotic but joyful meal. My phone sits silent on the counter, a rarity. The president is spending the weekend at Camp David with her family, and for once, the world is quiet enough that I can be just Maya, instead of Lieutenant Commander Chen. You look happy, child, my grandmother observes, adding spices to the soup with the precision of 7 decades of practice. I am happy, grandmother. Even with your family, we haven't always been kind to you. I consider the question while stirring vegetables. You are always kind to me. The others, they're learning. Learning what? That love isn't supposed to have conditions. That family means supporting each other's dreams, even when those dreams lead in unexpected directions. She nods approvingly. Your grandfather would be proud of you. He understood duty, sacrifice. He would see you protecting the president and know that you chose correctly. Outside, Victoria calls that dinner is ready. Through the window, I watch my family gather around tables laden with food and conversation. They're trying, all of them, to rebuild relationships damaged by years of misunderstanding and conditional love. It's not perfect. We still have moments of tension, conversations that reveal how much work remains to be done. But they ask about my job now, genuinely interested in stories I can share. They celebrate my promotions without suggesting I'm wasting my potential. They include me in family photos without cropping out my uniform. Most importantly, they've stopped waiting for me to come to my senses and come home. They've finally realized that I am home. In the life I've built, the mission I've chosen, the family I've found among the people who trust me with everything that matters. My secure phone buzzes with a text from Agent Rodriguez. Enjoy your family time, Lieutenant Commander. The world will still be here when you get back. I smile, typing back. Thanks for the reminder that both families matter. Both? The one that shares my name and the one that shares my mission. Roger that. See you Monday. I slip the phone into my pocket and head outside to join the celebration. Tomorrow I'll return to Washington, to briefings and threats, and the endless vigilance that keeps democracy functioning. But tonight, I'm just Maya Chen, surrounded by a family that's finally learned to love me as I am, rather than as they wished I could be. The girl they tried to erase from guest lists has become the woman they brag about to their friends. The disappointment who chose service over society now sets the standard for what it means to make a difference. They erased my name from their list once. Now they can't stop saying it with pride. And that transformation, from erasure to elevation, from disappointment to admiration, proves that the most powerful changes aren't always the ones we force, but the ones we earn through simple persistence in being exactly who we're meant to be. The guest list that once excluded me now seems wonderfully irrelevant. When you're protecting the leader of the free world, every other invitation pales in comparison. But sometimes the sweetest invitations are the ones that come from families who finally learn to see clearly who finally understood that the person they tried to change was exactly the person the world needed her to become. History wrote my name in permanent ink. My family finally learned to read it. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.